July BCA Speaker Series starts now. Here is Ron Jaworski.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is well and safe, and of course, hydrating in this oppressive heat. And welcome to another fantastic BCA event. And today we are coming to you from the Deacon in Philadelphia. This was the location of the first African Baptist church until 2016, when they moved to their new home in West Philadelphia. First African Baptist Church has a rich history, a very rich history, including establishing the first savings and loan company for black people in the early 1900s. And today, it provides a great backdrop for this fantastic conversation. The unrest we've been experiencing over the last few weeks has brought an increased consciousness to the need for change, and we do need change. Acknowledging racism and calling it out is a great first step. But an increased awareness is useful only if it prompts more justice and less racism. It's time for all of us to step up and stand with the black community. Our BCA family is very powerful. We are influential people of community leaders. It is a compassionate group who believes in genuinely getting to know others and asking how I can help. Today, we all begin to listen. Today, we begin to learn and ask how we can help become better allies to the black community and make all our communities a better place to live, to work, and to raise our families. Before we welcome our very special guest in just a few minutes, I want to bring in someone who is always asking the question, how can I help? And that is Anthony Mangaluzzo, the president of PCS. And he's always done an amazing job promoting BCA and all the wonderful things that happen. And he's always bringing in new members. So Anthony, who do you have for BCA as new members?
So our pandemic members, as we say, first time we're doing this, my friends Phil and Aaron from Victory Supply Chain Services. Want to give you a quick backdrop on how we met. I tend to accept a lot of invitations, and I got an invite from the Pyramid Club. And they were trying to do one thing. They were trying to get me to join the club. There was only one problem that day. We're already paying member of the club. But walked into the room, Phil and I, we were the only males in the room. We started talking. And one of the things that he spoke about was he had a great time at this March party. There was a lot of great business owners. I'm like, it's got to be BCA. So we came to the next event. It was the John Dorbas event, and we're here today, so I'm proud to introduce them as new members. And I will say this, we were talking right before this, they said nobody knew what the supply chain was. Now with Corona, we do, and these guys are very valuable in making sure that we get all the goods that we need. So welcome to the BCA family. I've been here 11 plus years, and I hope to see you in 11 years, but let's keep it slow.
Well, thank you, Anthony. I certainly appreciate the introduction that you made to me and Aaron into BCA. 5 or 6 years ago, I had the opportunity to attend a few BCA events as a guest, and I realized at that time that this group was a very special group, a group that's different, and a group that I wanted to be a part of. And when Anthony and I met at this wine tasting event, it was something that I absolutely asked him about and was pleasantly surprised to find out that he was a part of BCA. And so thank you so much.
Hi everyone, and I didn't know about BCA about a year ago, and thanks to Phil and Anthony, I've had a chance to experience the wonderfulness that BCA can bring. It's been such a warm, amazing welcome, and I am passionate about supply chain, we are, but I'm also passionate about meeting people and getting to know people, and I'm looking really forward to meeting the group. Thank you.
Phil, Aaron, great to have you as part of the team, but I'm really shocked you met Anthony at a wine tasting event. That's unusual for him to be out partying like that. All right.
Unlike Anthony.
But welcome to the group. You're going to have a blast. It's great people, and we will help your business.
Thanks, Ron.
As I mentioned earlier, BCA family is a powerful group of business leaders. As a collective group, we made the commitment to listen and to learn. Today we're going to open up a little bit. We're going to open up the dialogue, and it might get a little bit uncomfortable. Joining the conversation, we have some BCA members. And I thank you guys, and of course Jolene for joining us. Joining the conversation is Keith Baldwin, the president of Spike's Trophies. Keith, great to have you with us. Scott Payne, owner of Scott Payne Custom Pools. Thank you, Scott, for joining us. And Jeff Pacell, founder of Pacell Financial. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you all for joining us. And also joining us is Jolene Jaworski, the president of BCA. Now for our very special guest, and I guess I could welcome him back to Philadelphia, although it's just virtual right now, and hope to see you again down the road, Emmanuel. But I'd really like to thank you for taking time to join us out of your crazy schedule. You're out in Los Angeles right now, and I know there's a lot going on, and you found time to join us. And people that know you in this community, you're a former Philadelphia Eagle, and like I said, good to at least have you back home virtually. Now co-host of Speak for Yourself on FS1, and host and producer of incredibly popular series, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. That's a web series about racism, which was created to help drive and open the uncomfortable dialogue. So, man, you've opened it up, my friend, so we are so glad to have you with us, and we're going to have this open dialogue right now. So, first of all, welcome, Emmanuel, and thanks for taking time, and I'll turn it over to Keith, and he'll have the first question for you.
Hello, Emmanuel. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate you taking our questions. So my first question to lead us off is, what do you think about hiring quotas, set-aside contracts, etc., for minorities? Does this help or hurt the cause?
Man, first and foremost, ladies, gentlemen, thank you all so much for having me. I just got to get that out the way. It's an honor, and I consider it a privilege to be able to speak to a group of very accomplished individuals. To your question, the hiring quotas, does it help or hurt the cause? If we can scale back and really look at this from a bird's eye view, it helps the cause. I'm talking to football individuals, a football family, so let's talk a little bit of football if we may. 2003, the NFL implements the Rooney Rule. For those who don't know, the Rooney Rule, it mandates that whenever there's a head coaching vacancy, you have to at least interview a minority candidate. In 2004, Lovie Smith, head coach for the Chicago Bears, he's hired. In 2007, for the first time in NFL history, we see two black head coaches face off in the Super Bowl. I personally do not believe that is a coincidence. Remember, that is 50, 60 years after the first Super Bowl had been played, but just 3 years after you finally allow a quota, so to speak, that incentivizes and that induces minority hiring, we see a game that literally owns one day of the week of Sundays. We see that have the first time two black head coaches meet. Again, that's not for the sake of doing a favor for black people. That's for the sake of raising and elevating an organization, raising and elevating an entity in the National Football League. When I think about hiring quotas, there have already been hiring quotas on the other side of the coin. They're just not laws. Cronyism, it exists. Hiring those that look like you or hiring your friends. Nepotism, it exists. Hiring a relative, hiring a family member. So all of those things already exist. They just don't necessarily exist for black people or for people of color. So I do think that hiring quotas help. It's just a matter of how you do them. And this isn't an opinion. Statistics show that hiring quotas help, because how can you find a way to diversify your organization unless you mandate hiring quotas? Otherwise, it's left upon the CEOs, the owners, and the managers of the organization to do something that they may not necessarily want to or be prone to do.
I would like to follow up and ask, quotas are great, but if the pool of candidates is not there, how do you meet those quotas?
Phenomenal. Really good question. The pool of candidates, I don't know if it's ever a matter of if it's not there or if they haven't yet been located. I don't think it's a matter that the pool might not necessarily be there. I just think that you have to be looking so that you can identify that pool and where that pool exists. Now, there are certain industries. I had a conference yesterday in the tech space, and I was talking to some very high up people in tech, and they just kind of poured their heart out to me saying, well, Emmanuel, there aren't a lot of black people in the tech space. But then you have to ask yourself, why is that? Because growing up as a child, you aspire to be those who look like you, right? There's a reason that so many athletes wanted to be like Walter Payton. I wore number 34 as a running back in Pee Wee Little League because I saw Walter Payton. I then went on to wear number 22 because I saw Emmitt Smith. I then went on to wear number 52 because I saw Ray Lewis. It's a matter of, are Black people seeing, are people of color seeing, are women seeing faces that look like them so that they can aspire to and desire to become them in the future? So the pool exists. It's just a matter of finding the pool. And if the pool doesn't exist, then help create the pool.
So looking in the wrong place right now is essentially what we need to be looking at, is looking in a better place, looking in different places for those people.
Yes, I would say looking at different places, but I would also simply say putting on your glasses so you get the full vantage point. My coach used to tell me in college, Will Muschamp, the head coach of South Carolina now, he would always say, don't be like water, because water takes the easiest route. If you pour water on the ground, the water will just take the path of least resistance as it travels down the ground to the next location. And I think we as individuals, we take the easiest route. It's so much easier to just hire a friend. It's so much easier to just hire someone who looks like you. It's so much easier to just fall into that easy path of cronyism, as opposed to, you know what? Let me do something and at least talk to or interview someone who may not look like me, but will look at something, look at life, look at my business, look at my company with a different vantage point. And that's where we have to get to as a society.
Scott, yes, sir.
Emmanuel, thank you for all you do, number one. Really dig the show and what you represent. If I gave the Black community a magic wand to fix inequality and systematic racism, what would you use it on?
Scott, I have wrestled with this question literally for hours. This is the most difficult question that I've been asked in regards to this topic, and here's why. At first I said, well, I would put an influx of money into the Black community, but money without education would be squandered. And then I said, okay, well, I would try to put Black people and people of color in power positions, right? In positions of power. But then I'm like, man, there are too many pockets in which the power positions, they wouldn't distribute those funds properly. The only thing that I would do with the magic wand, I would take this wand and I would go back in time, back to, honestly, I would just travel back at least 100 years. And when the system began to fracture, even during and right after the Civil War, when redlining existed, and you would and Black people were thrown into impoverished neighborhoods and impoverished areas, at that point in time, when Black people weren't allowed to get proper credit for house funding, that's what I would do to fix the system. I genuinely was going through mental calisthenics trying to find the appropriate answer to this question. But it's like when you build up a house. Scott, if you're to build up a house and the house has a fractured foundation, and now you're building up a 3-story house, and you come in with an interior designer and you say, fix it. They can remodel the kitchen. They can remodel the bathrooms. They can retile the floors. They can paint the exterior. They can change the blinds. But the problem is the foundation is fractured. And that's the same thing right now in our society, is that there is no quick fix. Historically speaking, there are 2 ways to acquire wealth in America: through property and through education. But remember, when looking at public school education, 50% of public school education is funded through property taxes. Black people weren't allowed quality properties after the 1950s. And if quality properties funds your education, then you can't get a quality education. So the system has now completely been undermined. So the only thing I could do with the magic wand is then go back in time and fix what was fractured, because otherwise, Scott, we're simply trying to retile the floors and paint the exterior of the house when we have to realize there's a foundational issue at hand.
Yeah, and I think we both agree that this didn't fracture overnight. You know, there's definitely more than one answer here. We could sit here till tonight, you know, and talk on this one question, but it's awesome to see that we're moving in the right direction.
Yes, and to your point, because let me at least leave this on a more optimistic note. This question on a more optimistic note. Racism, this issue that we have right now, it's not a finish line we'll cross. right? It's not like we'll say, ta-da, we beat racism. It's not what's going to happen. Playing football, you got 4 quarters, 60 minutes. At the end of that game, there's a winner and there's a loser. That's not the case with systematic inequality. It's a road that we'll travel, not a finish line we'll cross. And you all sitting here and everyone who's going to witness this call, they just have to choose to travel that road each and every day. And that's where we have to get to, because there's so much to undo. Now we just have to try to course correct moving forward.
Jeff, you got a question?
Hey, Emmanuel. Great to be with you this morning, and appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us. So as we think about interacting with associates and colleagues, friends, people that might work for us, if we want to create a safe place for folks to share about their own struggles and their own challenges, how might we be best to initiate that type of conversation?
No, let me start with this MLK quote. The true tragedy is not necessarily the oppressor and his oppression, but it is the silence from our friends. And I so desperately wish, and that's why I'm so appreciative of y'all joining me, I so desperately wish that people realize half the time, there just needs to be a conversation. Like after the murder of George Floyd, I was distraught. I didn't know what to do, didn't know what to think, didn't know what to feel. But when my friends just called me just to check up on me, that's what I needed. And I didn't need a grand answer. I didn't need some sort of doctrine and dissertation of how we're going to fix racism. I just needed a voice. I just needed a heart. I just needed a sounding board. And so if the conversation isn't necessarily brought up by a colleague, how do you bring it up? You don't overthink it. How do you bring up sports? How do you bring up work? How do you bring up life? How do you bring up relationships? Our problem with race is that we're all so timid. We're all so scared to say the wrong thing, when in fact, if your heart is in a good place and it comes up, that's all that's desired. And I think that so many times, at least Black people, we don't want to feel burdensome. We don't want to feel like we're complaining. So we just kind of suffer silently. And we just sit there like, you know what? I don't want to sit here and seem like I'm complaining, so I'll silently suffer. Whereas I just wish that my dear white brothers and sisters and my white colleagues and business women and businessmen just take that initiative. Hey, how can I help you? How can I support you? How can I be there for you? I've had so many coaches, Jaws, so many coaches and GMs of different organizations across different leagues have called me now because they've been like, man, I've been silent for too long, but I don't know what to say. And being silent is just not enough. It's not enough anymore. Educate yourself and then speak from your heart. And it shouldn't take, ladies and gentlemen, it shouldn't take having to see someone who looks like you suffer to be able to empathize. You should just be able to speak and be able to empathize from your heart.
You know, Emmanuel, you talk about, that empathy. I think is very important. But I've always felt, and being in a football locker room like you and I were, you develop that bond and a trust in each other. And I've always felt with my Black teammates, I've always had good conversations because we developed a trust in each other. In business, I find it much more difficult to develop the trust that we had in the locker room. So how do I approach Black people that work through now and get them to buy into what I'm trying to do, and also buy into what they believe in and develop that trust that we had in the locker room?
That's a phenomenal question. You have to remove the invisible chasm and hierarchy of status. What I mean by that is, obviously there is a hierarchy in businesses. There is a CEO, there is a manager, there is the lower level managers, and then there's just a hierarchy. I understand that. But it has to at least feel as if we're all on the same team. I got my master's degree in sports psychology, so I'm super big into the mind and I'm super big into words. Small terms, just such as we, making things feel inclusive. Remember, when we were in the locker room, Jaws, it's a matter of we're all fighting for the same goal. We're all competing for the same thing. We want to win a Super Bowl. We want to get to the playoffs. We want to win the division. Within business, you have a group of individuals that come under an umbrella as a team, but truly they're individuals. One of my favorite sports, track and field. I love track and field. I love the Olympics. Devastated it got canceled. But track and field is truly an individual sport. It's an individual sport comprised of individuals who score points for a team. And the problem is, so many of our businesses are individual sports. They're individual sports, just all falling under this umbrella, so they act in turn as though they're a team. You have to find a way to remove the veil that says, well, I am here and you are here. I think that is the only way, because if I can be honest, and that's what I love about these conversations, for the most part, oftentimes, like, Black people can feel uncomfortable or can feel awkward around top tier white people because there's a divide culturally. I've been in locker rooms where a head coach I played for, he just didn't know how to relate to Black people. And so it was just very awkward. He'd see white people in the hall, he'd say hello. He'd see Black people in the hall, he wouldn't speak. And we can sense that. Black people can sense that. And so I think you just have to be cognizant. Businessmen, businesswomen, business leaders have to be cognizant about removing those cultural barriers so that there's just complete freedom within the workspace. Because when there's freedom, everybody excels and the business excels.
Do you agree that racism is a learned trait that is born out of ignorance and passed down? And if so, how do you educate to dilute that going into the future?
I absolutely agree that racism is learned, but here's what we have to remember. I don't think racism is necessarily just taught by parents. I'll say this, more is caught than is taught. Meaning, the reason I don't drink, I've never drank alcohol, is because I never saw my parents drink. I don't really curse because I never saw my parents curse. So it doesn't matter if my parents were to say, hey son, stop cursing, but they're cursing like a sailor. It doesn't matter if you as a parent, if you as a business leader say, oh, well, we should really promote diversity, but you don't have any Black friends. You don't have any friends of color. So I do think that our society and our culture teach racism. How come whenever you're watching a movie, if there is a villain, an antagonist and a protagonist, how come the Black person is typically the villain, but the white person is not? When I'm watching movies, I just wish for a day y'all could sit in my shoes. If ever a white person is the victim and a Black person rather is the victim and the white person is the assailant, I'm like taken aback. Like, what happened here? Who messed up this script? Because it contradicts the norm. And so I think culture, society, parents, businesses, they tell us how things are supposed to be. I sat down again, because this is a conversation, an intimate conversation with you all. I was consulting for a company, and they sent me their commercial. And in the commercial, there were no Black people. However, the voice of the person doing the sound for the commercial, so voice recording the commercial, the voice you would hear, they were Black. But there were no Black people in the commercial. And as a Black person, I recognize that. Like, wait a second. So you'll use all white people in front of the camera, but you'll use a Black person to vocally sell the product. That is problematic. Before we do anything else, before I help you with consulting for anything else, we have to address that. So I do think that racism, you're not born racist, but it is learned. How do you combat that? We have to change the way we approach our business. We have to change the way we approach our society. We have to change the way we have to change who we put in power. If the only people in power are all white, then you can't change anything. Now, that's not to say give out handouts. Let me be abundantly clear. That's not to say give out handouts, hire quality people, but we just have to find a way to push against the grain and diversify.
Well, Emmanuel, we've run out of time. I wish we had another hour to talk to you. You've been
talk about those handouts. So much more I want to talk about.
Very enlightening. And you know, the BCA family is learning a lot from you. America's learning a lot from you. So we thank you for opening up the dialogue, opening up the conversation, and making us all better human beings. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And I'll close by saying this, because obviously we're short on time, but this I think is the most important message. The fact that you all have sat down the fact that you all have initiated this conversation is the only way we will change things in America. So kudos to you. People ask me, well, Emmanuel, how can you end racism? You can't fix a problem you do not know exists. Denial, spelled D-E-N-I-A-L. Don't even know I am lying. Denial. If we continue to live in a state of denial as a country, if you all and if your peers continue to live in a state of denial as business leaders and some of the top world shakers and people shakers, we'll never fix anything. So kudos to you all, and continue to become aware and make change, because truly you all hold the keys to the reconciliation. I'm just a conduit and I'm just a catalyst, but it'll be done by the powerful and loving people of you all.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
Well, I've got everyone back, and we're going to talk about the takeaway from the discussion with Emmanuel Acho. And kind of what I thought is you can be uncomfortable, but feel comfortable with a guy like Emmanuel. You know, I mean, it's a difficult subject to be open and honest about, but he makes you feel comfortable talking about it. Keith, what did you think?
I just wish it could have gone on for another hour or so. All of us had so many more questions, and we wanted to ask a lot more, and it just ended too quick. And he did make you feel comfortable.
Yeah, amazing. I got to go back to Keith's question and Emmanuel's answer on, you know, is racism is a learned trait? You know, I grew up in a mixed color family. You know, my grandmother broke the color barrier in 1930 something. Married a black man, had 3 kids. So I got to sit here and say that, you know, I get goosebumps saying it, that my life as a child was perfect. There was no racism, not in the Payne household. You know, Loretta Payne didn't, she preached love. So as time went on and the learned behavior question falls back into this, we, you know, we went to a place we shouldn't be, and that came through the education systems and society and the ignorance. And listen, with a guy like Emmanuel leading the charge, I think we're on the right track to make that go away.
Jeff?
Yeah, hopefully this is part 1 of part 2, part 3, part 10. I'd love to talk to him over and over again. I can't believe it was a half hour. But I think I could say with a great degree of confidence, BCA as a community, as a group of business leaders, we could all have differences of opinions, and that's great, right? But we're all willing to accept and be a part of sort of unalienable truths, right? I think we all want to create an accepting culture, a place where anyone, doesn't matter the difference, is comfortable being a part of it, being with us, being in our events when we can have events again. And this dialogue just has to continue so we can make sure that in future events, we have a really diverse group of people who get a chance to experience the power of the BCA. And if we can move in that direction, then we'll hopefully we'll be leaders in something other than just business.
Yep. Yeah, and, you know, Keith, you say it ended too quick. You know, yes, the conversation with Emmanuel ended too quick, but the conversation doesn't end here. You know, as a BCA organization, we've always championed diversity. We have always desired diversity and equity and respect for others. But I'll be honest, we have failed. You know, and we're all sitting here today because we know BCA, as well as our businesses, has failed to provide an increase in racial equity. I'm glad we had this conversation today because we say the words and we desire it, but how do we do it? And these conversations are how we do it. I am very excited to continue this conversation. Emmanuel helped us open the dialogue. We want to see a better future. You know, personally, I'm going to get choked up. I have a son, you know, I want a better future for him. You know, he is mixed race, and we all want a better future for our children, for ourselves, for our businesses. So please don't let the conversation end today.
Jolene, thank you. Keith, thank you. Scott, Jeff, thank you so much. This is the beginning. It really is. And this is one of the really great things that BCA does. You know, shows leadership. And to just stand up and say what you feel, you know, to get a guy like Emmanuel to speak the truth in his mind and navigate this difficult path that we're going to have to go down. But I think for BCA, it started today. So let's keep the dialogue going. So thank you all so very much, and thanks to the BCA family for all the great work that you do in our communities, and most importantly, hydrate this week. Love you all. Take care.
If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. If you're tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. Oh, find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. That's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah.